Welcome to the launch of FourthWave's 2021 program. I'm Nancy Perlman, the founder of FourthWave, and we're so excited to introduce the group of extraordinary founders who are joining this year. For those of you who are new to the FourthWave party, we're an accelerator program for female tech entrepreneurs. We run an annual 16-week program in partnership with Sacramento State's Carlson Center and match cohort members with business mentors and leadership coaches. Our agenda this evening is pretty simple. We want you to meet each cohort member and for her to share a short story by way of introduction. We're big believers in the power of storytelling, and you're in for a treat with what's ahead. First, I want to express our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to the Carlson Center, especially to Cameron Law and Jesse Becker-Alexander. We began our partnership with them during an unprecedented time last year, having no idea what it would be like to run a completely virtual program. And turns out it didn't detract from the impact of our collaboration one bit. In some ways, it may have even increased how connected everyone became because we ended up being more intentional about our time together. The Carlson Center's support, combined with last year's ambitious cohort, resulted in our 2020 founders raising nearly $10 million in funding, which has been a real joy to witness. We're also delighted to have two new entrepreneurs in residence join us this year. Meg Dennison, one of our leadership coaches, and Helly Prilliman, founder of Lacquer Bar. We also have two FourthWave fellows from Sacramento State. Jocelyn Sandoval, who's studying PR and communications and building a startup called Protector, and Maggie Chan, who's studying civil engineering. The backbone to our program is our dream team of business mentors and leadership coaches. Thank you for locking arms with us and sharing your invaluable wisdom. We are immensely grateful for our generous sponsors, led by the California Asian Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, the City of Elk Grove, Five Star Bank, Stoll Reeves LLP, and the Sacramento Utility District. While Sacramento State's President Nelson wasn't able to join us in person today, he sent a video that we'd like to share with you now.
Hi, everyone at the Carlson Center. We're excited about today. We're excited about today because today marks the day that we bring to fruition everything that Dale and I dreamed about when we dreamed about the Carlson Center. We wanted the Carlson Center to be a hub of innovation. We wanted it to bring the region together, to be strong, to create new entrepreneurs. And today, we take a big step forward. But it is a special step forward because of FourthWave and Nancy Perlman and Cheryl Beninga. Because of them, we are going to team up with women entrepreneurs, women who will start their businesses, women who will lead the way. I am so grateful for this opportunity for us to be able to be partners with FourthWave. This is going to be a great partnership, one that will last forever. I'm very proud of you all. Stingers up.
Thank you, President Nelson. And now we have Dale Carlson with us, who'd like to say a few words. Welcome, Dale. Dale, you're muted.
Yeah, I got it. Hey, I'm so excited. This is President Nelson. This is part of the dream that we had for the Carlson Center, is to bring these opportunities to entrepreneurs that really have a passion and a drive to do what you ladies all want to do, and to be able to give the support and everything's there. When we met up with Cheryl and Nancy and put the partnership together with FourthWave, it was a dream come true to find a partnership like that and to be able to bring this opportunity to all that need it. And I am just excited to see your program, seeing what you come up with and how you take your businesses to the next level. It's an amazing feat that you're done already, and the future is all in your hands. I know you're going to do fantastic. So good luck to all of you.
Thank you, Dale. I'm so glad you were here. Thank you. Before we jump into our first founder story, I want to share a few tidbits from a Washington Post article from earlier this year. As of mid-December, there have been more than 1.5 million new business applications in the United States, up 82% in the third quarter compared with a year ago. Many of those businesses are being started by women out of necessity or because the timing is right, or both. Welcome to a pandemic-fueled rise in female entrepreneurship. LinkedIn found that the share of female entrepreneurs on its platform grew 5% year over year from March through November, more than double the pre-pandemic average. LinkedIn's analysts looked at female members who had changed their title to founder during the pandemic. We know that women have been hit harder by the pandemic than men, and we also know how resourceful and resilient women can be, as evidenced by this article. In line with that sentiment, our focus with FourthWave is to bypass the noise of what isn't and focus on what can be. We envision a world where the abundance of funding easily flows to women and where equity is naturally in place, no discussion needed. And with that, I'd like to introduce our first entrepreneur, Antoinette Banks, founder and CEO of Expert IEP. Welcome, Antoinette.
Hello, everyone. I was born in Los Angeles, California. However, the first part of my childhood was spent in the Virgin Islands. And one day, my family and I were on the wharf in St. Martin that expanded into the middle of the ocean. Now, my twin sister and my cousins and I were all playing on this wharf when all of a sudden, my uncle picked me up and tossed me clear off the wharf. And I came up for air. I'm swimming, I'm looking around, and I'm thrashing about. I swallowed water. I was terrified. And I heard swim. And I'm looking at my family, and they're looking down at me, and I'm looking at them like, what is happening? I'm about to drown. And my uncle says, swim, you're not hearing me. So I turned towards the shore, and I moved one leg after the other, one arm after the other. And as I got closer to the shore, I got stung by a jellyfish. And I cried out, and I kept moving. And then I scratched my knee against some coral. And I saw shadowy figures under the water, and I moved faster, and my heart was racing. And I scrambled onto the beach, and I thought, okay, I'm done. And then I sliced my foot open on a rock. And when I touched the sand, I laid back, and I felt the sun on my skin. And then soon my uncle crouched near me, and he told me he was proud of me, that he was actually in the water right beside me. He dove in. But that before we went back to Los Angeles next year, he wanted me to know that sometimes the safest places to be is in the deep. He said, be afraid of playing safe and staying near the shoreline. That's where the danger is. Never be afraid of jumping into the deep.
Thank you, Antoinette. Next up is Hala Al-Khatib. She is the co-founder and CSO of Expert IEP.
Hello, everyone. Before I get further into my story, I'd like you all to remember the word makluba. You can repeat it to yourself, whatever helps to keep it in mind. And in the end, I promise I will get to the meaning of this word. Growing up Middle Eastern, I always had a strong appreciation for the traditional recipes that my mom would spend hours working on in the kitchen. And usually I was given the task of just gathering fresh ingredients from our backyard. So one day my mom is making a salad as a side dish, and I go to our backyard to gather the tomatoes, jalapenos, mint, lemon, all straight from our backyard. And maybe some of you can actually relate to that satisfaction of growing your own ingredients, because I know my mom has always loved it ever since I can remember, and she has a very, very green thumb. So I come back to the kitchen and I'm watching my mom meticulously layer one ingredient after the other in the pot. And I run back to my siblings, telling them I just saw her pour in the last ingredient, and we're all complaining, our stomachs are growling. And then we hear our mom call out that dinner is ready. And I watch my mom gather this larger circular serving dish and place it on the table. And then she grabs the pot by its handles, and it's this heavy, steaming hot pot. And it feels like I watched the next part happen in slow motion as she literally flips the pot upside down onto the serving plate. And then she lifts the pot back up, and there's the meal standing perfectly like a sandcastle after you lift the bucket up at the beach. Now, the word I had you think of to yourself in the beginning, makluba, that's the name of the meal. Makluba is an Arabic word that means turned upside down, which is exactly what my mom did to the dish. Now, not only did I learn my mom doesn't like one too many hands in the kitchen when she's cooking a meal, which is why I usually just gathered the ingredients. But at that moment, and every time I look at the dish, I realize that any moment you think something is done or finalized or there's no way out, you can always turn it into something beautiful you didn't think of before by flipping it upside down or making it into makluba. Thank you.
Thank you, Hala. Next, I'd like to welcome Kayleen Canaveri. She's the founder and CEO of Flexia.
Hey everyone. I grew up in Woodland, California, which is just outside of Sacramento. And when I was a teenager, I was in the 4-H Aerospace and Rocketry Club. I loved to build model rockets. I wasn't necessarily a space fan, but I liked the process of a rocket, crafting all the parts, painting it just the way I wanted. The process of creating something from nothing was what was most rewarding to me. After I was done building the rockets, I mostly just wanted to look at them. I never really wanted to launch them with all the other kids. I didn't really have any. I mean, I'd launched plenty of rockets early in my rocketry career, and all they did was go straight up and come straight down. I didn't really care about it. One time, though, my dad convinced me to launch one of my rockets, one of my masterpieces. It was a beautiful SR-71 replica that took me months to finish. The curves of it were especially difficult to form and lay flat, but I did it. We sometimes launched rockets in a local tomato field between crops, so we could run about and not damage any food. But this time we were launching at the fairgrounds, which probably only had a few hundred yards radius of clear space, and then a street, and then businesses all around. So of course, when it came time for me to launch my rocket, it went straight up about 100 feet. Then took a 90-degree turn and blasted off across the field, over the street, and onto the roof of a local government building. Never found again. Needless to say, I never launched another rocket I built after that.
Thank you, Kayleen. Next, I'd like to welcome Krista Rhyme, founder of CruteX. Hey, Krista.
Hello, everyone. I was born in secret. The only people that knew existed were my mother, the doctor, and the nurses that delivered me. I was promptly given away for adoption and placed with a white evangelical conservative family in rural Minnesota in a small town called Spicer, population 1,200. I grew up thinking I was ugly. The kids would rub on my skin and touch my hair. I remember my adopted mother just yanking that comb through my hair, saying, "You have such bad hair." And eventually she didn't want to deal with it anymore, so she cut it all off. These experiences and more just made me think, you're ugly and you don't belong. I even remember putting a towel on my head, pretending I had long, silky hair like the other girls my age. And then one day, when I was around 11 or 12 years old, a stylist, Mrs. Nelson, reached out and asked if she could do my hair. Have you ever received a random act of kindness that changed the trajectory of your life? You see, Mrs. Nelson was white and wasn't trained in black hair care. But then I believe she went over 100 miles away to Minneapolis to learn how to cornrow, do micro braids, and box braids. I was nervous walking into her salon, and I remember sitting in her chair for hours. Then she said, "We're finished." She held up that mirror, and I took a look at myself with black, small, long, beautiful braids that almost reached my waist. And for the first time, I felt beautiful. Mrs. Nelson took the time to learn a new skill to make me feel beautiful and introduced me to a part of my culture. She made me feel like I belonged. Her act of kindness helped me persevere, and survive until I was able to lead that small town. She was my example of how to lead with kindness, compassion, and empathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Next, I would like to welcome Lee Sharpless, co-founder of Monologue.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lee, and the story I would like to introduce myself with is about my freshman year of college. And granted, I am an undergrad still, so it's really not that long ago. But I decided to participate in a fellowship program in a concept called effective altruism. And if you're not familiar, effective altruism is the idea to do as much good as you possibly can most effectively. And so in terms of donating, this means how can you have the largest impact with a certain amount of money? In terms of volunteering, this means where can you go to volunteer to help the most people most effectively? But see, you know, aside from the wonderful conversation that this fellowship brought on, I always had problems with the ideas in that I feel like doing good and I feel like donating in particular are two things that are entirely driven by empathy. And I thought that effective altruism was working to remove empathy entirely from something that required it the most, you know. And the reason that you donate or the reason that you volunteer is so often motivated by the feeling that you want or don't want others to experience some difficulty or some experience that you yourself have experienced, whether that's putting money into cancer prevention, whether that's putting money into primary education, or for me, that means donating and helping out in suicide prevention. I actually lost a close friend of mine a little while ago, and you know, to this day, it affects everything that I do. And so the way that that has manifested in, you know, my company is that I have decided to dedicate myself to a mental wellness platform. As I mentioned earlier, I'm an undergrad, and so donations aren't necessarily going to go too far. But I think that to this day, the effective altruist in my fellowship freshman year would probably be looking at my career path right now with question and wondering why I've decided to do something that matters so much to me in a way. And so thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Thank you, Lee. Next, I'd like to welcome Ishita Shah. She's the co-founder and CEO of Matrubials.
Hi, everyone. I am delighted to be here today, and thank you for joining us all. The story that I'm going to share today is from the time when I was in 5th grade back home in India. Both me and my sister were national level chess players. And at one of these outdoor tournaments in my hometown, the person I was playing against was this elderly gentleman. And about half hour in the game, I started noticing that after every move that he made and pressed the timer on his clock, he ended up starting to smoke a cigarette. Now, this was an outdoor setting. There were no real rules at the time for or against smoking. And I was getting bothered by it. I was this 10-year-old kid playing chess, and I looked him in the eye and I was like, I don't know if you realize, but I'm just 10 years old and this is not very good for me. He had all the winning moves. He ended up, you know, taking the sheet of his win to the organizers. And he said to them that I may have won on the board, but this little girl made me think about something that I had paid no attention to. And in that moment, I kind of went home that night thinking to myself that no matter how small you are or inexperienced you are, if you truly believe in something with conviction and convey it in a way, you may have a chance of making an impact, no matter how small that is. And so I have taken those early life lessons with me, and even 30 years down the road, I continue to experience so many ups and downs in my scientific career. But I learned some of the best lessons from things that don't go as per planning, but also teach me how to develop my own personality and finesse so many different traits. And as we think, you know, we always think about our mothers as our first guru, if we have had the privilege to grow up with our mothers. But all of these life experiences, they end up shaping us to become who we are as adults today and who we end up growing to be as we go on in our lives. So I thank you again for this opportunity and hope you all have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Ishita. And next, I'd like to introduce Lily Cabrera. She's the founder and CEO of Well Market.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lily. I'm the daughter of Julian, an immigrant, a musician, who played with the greats of Afro-Cuban jazz, but then worked as a janitor. I grew up thinking that achievement allowed you to control your destiny. I was never ashamed of not having much, yet I wanted more control over my future, to put aside the worries of not having enough. In school, I absorbed everything and strived for perfection. I was the rare child who picked up etiquette books and relished learning about the right utensils to use, even though there wasn't a country club within 100 miles. It was as if I could prepare my future life by following the code. Fast forward a decade to Dartmouth College, I was able to navigate through, never blending in as much as my prep school peers. I tried on different hats: scientist, sculptor, academic, even outdoorsy, which was a stretch for a Brooklyn girl. I studied abroad, all of the joys of a liberal arts education. Being a chameleon, another term I came to know, code switching as a woman of color, followed me into my professional career, adjusting to set and setting and navigating with ease. I thought I knew what I wanted, a life doing important work in important places. I was offered a role at Princeton, and yet I felt a gnawing drag in my abdomen and turned it down. Why? And then I accepted a role at the Council on Foreign Relations, a bastion of titans of industry and the literal leaders of the world. The politics and culture made my shoulders tense. Wait, what? Knowledge, prestige, collaborating with powerful people wasn't everything? What were these sensations? There's actually a neurobiology of intuition, a scientific basis for our gut feelings. Intuition is defined as the ability to understand or know something immediately without conscious reasoning. Your brain constantly compares incoming sensory information and current experiences against stored knowledge and memories of previous experiences, predicting what will come next. We often process these sensations before the rational brain develops a story to support our feelings. It wasn't until I found coaching that I learned more about the intertwined mysteries of psychology, neuroscience, and the physiology of emotion. A whole new world opened up. This was the impetus for creating Well Market. Have you ever met someone and within minutes had a feeling of yes bound through your chest? How about sensations in your body when making decisions? Are you able to tune in or do you tune out? This is a story of setting aside ego to find my authentic voice, a journey inside to be stronger on the outside, and chart my own path to create opportunity and impact. Today, I look for a whole body yes in making decisions, although I do keep a healthy analytical streak. The moral of the story is to take a deep breath, tune in deeply, and listen to that inner voice. It often guides us exactly where we're meant to be. I'm happy to be here with FourthWave and with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Now we're going to switch things up and have May Sepan, Vice President of Global and Domestic Programs for the California Asian Chamber of Commerce, share a few words. They are our lead sponsor, and we're so delighted to have May with us this evening. Welcome, May.
Thank you, Nancy. Hi, everyone. Good evening to you. As Nancy said, I work with Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce as the Vice President for their global and domestic programs. Here at Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce, we are dedicated to growing and strengthening the underserved and less represented business community. The Cal Asian Chamber achieves this by providing access to education and opportunities to enable small businesses to increase profits, to connect to domestic and international opportunities, and to influence local and state policies. With the TAPE Small Business Innovation Center, which we have operated for the past 3 years, we're excited to support underrepresented founders and entrepreneurs. We're committed and thrilled to uplift the business and entrepreneur journeys like the cohort members here, and to join FourthWave in sharing their inspirational stories and make an impact, as well as pave the way for women in the future to succeed as business owners and leaders. And while inequalities are prevalent in business, from pay rate to investment in the venture capital space, research has shown that female-founded and co-founded startups tend to perform better than all male ones. Yet women are severely underestimated by investors, even though they have proven to achieve better results. Women have incredible and untapped potential and are critical to our economic growth. The key to growing the number of women entrepreneurs in this world is to make them known. And here at the Tate Small Business Innovation Center, we are dedicated to recognize talented and driven entrepreneurs and sharing their stories with others to inspire, motivate, and connect. We believe in the power of connecting like-minded individuals to rise together and to lead change for years to come. We're so excited to be a part of your journey here. Congratulations to all of you, the 2021 cohort of founders. We're honored to partner with FourthWave and to join each of you in advancing your goals and business journey. Thank you.
Thank you, May. We feel the same way. We're so honored to share this journey with you. And thank you for those really insightful comments. We're going to move along into the next round of our stories. We have 6 founders left, and we're going to start with Leslie Chertok, co-founder of Biopause Tech. Sorry, Leslie.
Thanks, Nancy. And it's just Biopause. Last summer, a couple friends who happen to be expert backpackers and I decided to go beach camping for a relaxing weekend. I had heard about a mile-long old-growth forest trail accessible via some logging roads that leads to a pristine section of the Washington coast, a section of beach otherwise only accessible by a 10-mile beach hike. Following the directions through miles of logging roads, we easily found the parking area. After a few false starts, we thought we had found the trailhead. Within an hour, we knew we were horribly lost. I pulled out the compass that I always brought with me on hikes, but never used. We knew the beach was west and that there was an abandoned trail northwest, so we oriented in that direction. It took us 8 grueling hours over 2 days to travel only 1.5 miles. We hiked through the most tall and dense understory. We were terrified as we climbed on and walked over fallen old growth trees that looked like giant piles of Lincoln logs, only to find ourselves having made a little forward progress, but now standing precariously 20 feet above the ground. We even had a close encounter with a black bear. There were so many moments of thinking we saw a clearing ahead that could be the trail, only to be disappointed by our false leads. There were a few key moments for me when I found myself physically and emotionally exhausted and wanting to quit. And then realizing that literally quitting was not an option. We were lost, so we couldn't turn around. There was no place for a helicopter to land or some miraculous rescue people to show up. The only choice was continuing forward, pushing through dense salal and huckleberry. On the afternoon of day 2, we finally arrived at the stunning beach and we had a relaxing 24-hour vacation. Reflecting over the weeks and months after this experience, I realized that this hike that we expected to be only easy and only nourishing and only fun is a metaphor for many other situations. And perhaps it's an overall microcosm for life itself. I find myself here and there is never any going backwards. There is only orienting myself in the direction that feels right and taking it one step, one obstacle, one beautiful beach at a time. Thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you, Leslie. Next, I'd like to introduce Vandana Verma. She is Leslie's co-founder and chief science officer for Biopause.
Thanks, Nancy. So picture this. It's 2014 and I'm locked in a bathroom in Michigan. I'm hiding from a terrible boyfriend whilst I'm on the phone to my friend Allison, who lives in California. And the conversation goes something like this. So tell me again why you can't move to California. Well, I don't have a job. I don't have a place to live. Just get on a plane, just get on a plane. Well, and she was right. At this point, I didn't have a job. I barely had a place to live. And so the conversation carried on, me hiding in the bathroom. And then she went on, well, just get on a plane, just get on a plane. So eventually I took her advice and I did get on that plane. I eventually did leave the bathroom, believe it or not. And I did get out of that situation with the boyfriend. A week later, I was on a plane and I'd left Michigan in a terrible snowstorm. Very dramatic. It took a few months, but I did find a job. I found my husband, and then I formed Biopause with my co-founder, Leslie. And so whilst we've heard lots of different situations, and this one wasn't life-threatening in any way, but we all know that feeling of fear that comes into us and just takes over and prevents us from moving forward. And so the moral of this story for me was really to jump without a safety net, jump into the unknown and see how comfortable you can get. You'll definitely learn a lot more and end up in the most unexpected and perhaps wonderful places, even when you can't feel the ground under your feet. So that's the end of the story. Thank you, FourthWave. We are very, very excited to be here, and thank you for the wonderful welcome. We're excited to see what's to come and what this journey holds.
Thank you so much. Next, I would like to welcome Christy Serrato. She is the founder of Pair Anything.
I remember sorry, is the video on me?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so apologies.
No problem.
Hello, everyone. I want to tell a story about my mom. I remember the first time I told my mom I was interested in wine. She thought it was quite odd because Filipinos are not known to drink wine, and our cuisine leans more to sour foods, which is not necessarily known to pair well with wine. But Mom, ever supportive, she took me to my first trip to the wine country. That was back in 1988. We went to Napa, and I was in love with all of it. And since then, I visited other wine regions throughout California and Oregon and around the world. And since then, I've also tasted many wines. Some were horrible, some were forgetful, and luckily, there were many more that were sublime and life-changing, especially when magically paired with food. When I came up with a wine app idea, I first pitched it to my mom. She liked that I was combining my tech background with my passion for wine. She liked that the app can help people enjoy food more. Mom did ask, would I be able to enter Filipino dishes in the app? And as a dutiful daughter, my answer was yes, of course. That was the genesis for Pair Anything, how to pair wine with Filipino cuisine. Really, any cuisine. Why limit yourself to just French, Italian, or American? Hence the name Pair Anything. Now, last year in March, I launched the Pair Anything app. I showed it to Mom. She entered chicken adobo, and the app gave her a wine recommendation. She smiled, the biggest smile ever. It was priceless. Then, unexpectedly, in the midst of the pandemic, my mom fell ill. And by May, she passed. It was all so sudden, and I was so unprepared. Just like that, in a period of 3 months, I went from an all-time high to an all-time low. How does someone recover from a personal loss and forge ahead with a new venture? I look into the strength that I got from my mom, and I remember her saying that a life filled with kindness is a life worth living. And so now each day I start and end with being kind to myself. And from there, kindness flows exponentially. Also, I can look to my parenting app to remind me of mom. When I enter chicken adobo or another dish of hers that she enjoys cooking for us as we were growing up, I'm reminded of her beautiful and final smile. The delight she got from something I created now sustains me and inspires me to forge ahead with my parenting journey. Thank you for this opportunity to share this story.
Thank you, Christy. Next, I would like to introduce Carlonda McKinney, the founder of Bodify.
Evening, everyone. So I want to share a story with you that maybe you'll be able to relate to, maybe not, but we'll see. This, anyhow, was an interesting series of events for me. So at the beginning of this past school year, I had an 8-year-old son who was starting the 3rd grade. And as with many other families in August of 2020, we were a virtual education household. While this was, for many reasons, a very stressful time, it was also extremely illuminating as a parent. Being able to listen to how my child described his life circumstances to other 8-year-olds and an often caught off guard adult really gave me some perspective. Here are some phrases that I overheard during the 9 months of homeschool. In reference to employment, my mom is a hacker, but I don't think she wants anyone to know. Because he always sees me typing and staring at lines of code, he thinks I'm building the matrix. While discussing sports and fitness, my mom exercises, but I think it makes her mad. It's the only time she says bad words and she says them loud. During a lesson on kindness, my mom tells me to be nice. And sometimes I hear her talking mean to people, so I think I should be able to talk mean to people too. And finally, while a nutritionist was speaking to the class, I like water, but adults don't drink water. My mom only drinks coffee and wine. Classic. Mortified does not begin to explain how I felt. There were more, but they're way worse, and I can only hope that his teacher doesn't remember them and I will never repeat them in public. My takeaway, more is caught than is taught. And while I have always made what I thought was a giant effort to showcase certain behaviors and mindsets to my son, I realized that what I thought I was projecting isn't exactly what was getting across. Needless to say, this past school year precipitated a lot of changes beyond the obvious. I began examining my own behaviors and how they might be perceived, not just with my kid, but throughout all of the areas of my life. And honestly, I'm way better off for it. No matter how much I know and grow and stretch myself, there is still so much to be learned, and so much of that I learn every day from my son, who is now 8 and going into the 4th grade. So fingers crossed and prayers for better answers this year. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Carlonda. Oh, what a mirror. Next, I'd like to introduce Ritu Sharma. She's the founder of Innovating Pain.
Thank you, Nancy. My tale goes back to 3rd grade. My mom used to walk me to school those days. It was about a 2-mile journey each way. She would wait for me around 3, carry my bag, and we'd proceed with our journey back home. One day I noticed she wasn't keeping up, straying a few feet behind. I asked her why, and she replied, "Because you're embarrassed of me." She said it simply, matter of fact, not sad. It was like a sucker punch to the gut. I felt bad. I realized that I would always run to her as soon as I saw her, motioning her to stop where she was. It took me a while to understand the psychology around this. I was not as embarrassed of her as I was protective of her. She was my mom. If anyone said anything mean or made fun of her, it would hit me much harder than I had words for. I was just protecting her and myself. You see, my mom was always a very strong, traditional Indian woman, proud of her heritage. She wore a red dot on her forehead, the Indian symbol of marriage status. She spoke loudly, unapologetically, with her heavy Indian accent. She embraced her uniqueness with pride instead of trying to conform. My mom was unabashedly different. She was comfortable in her own skin, and she owned it. I decided to become a doctor, a cardiologist, different from anyone I knew. I had no idea what it would be like or how it would change my life. We were 2 female fellows in a group of 18 at Henry Ford Hospital. In my current practice, I am the only female in a group of 12 cardiologists. 5 years ago, I decided to write a children's book about being different, unique, a tale of a tiger without stripes and his journey towards self-realization. A year and a half ago, I decided to be an entrepreneur. Again, something different and something I knew nothing about going in. Over time, I realized being different has become a part of my identity. I challenge myself to reach beyond my comfort level, excited to keep learning. I admit I still have to learn to own it with a confidence that comes naturally from my mom, but I will continue to persevere because I know my daughter is watching.
Thank you, Ritu. And our final speaker is Mia Umanos. She's a co-founder of Clickvoyant.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. So for all my childhood, I wanted to be a journalist. And so at 21, with a newly minted journalism degree, I got my first job at a PR agency. But there I discovered that press releases on websites were easier to count than ones that went through the fax machine. And that to me was quantified success. I was completely hooked and immediately pivoted to a career in data and analytics. And in 2016, with a decade of marketing analytics under my belt, I was invited to the Philippines to work on an Obama-style analytics campaign for a presidential candidate. And I was like, you had me at Obama. I was completely bored with my day job running analytics programs to help companies sell more stuff. Marketing analytics is just super fraught with emotion and process, and I was ready for that change. This was going to be my chance to put my journalism roots to use, combined with my data skills, writing reports on constituency attitudes and volunteer engagement. It didn't really turn out the way that I expected it to. I experienced the exact same issues in the political arena that I did in the marketing one. We discovered so much dirty data that most of it was unusable. There were conflicting data projects coming out of the woodwork. It was heavily competitive, even within the party itself. And finally, a murderous dictator pulled ahead in a very unnatural way toward the end of the election, which was evidence of a large and advanced digital social campaign, a bellwether for what we now know as election meddling. Bored, I was not, but I was disappointed. My whole career, I thought that I wanted to be an analyst so that I could make a difference. I could influence outcomes. And I had to do a lot of soul searching after that election to realize that being an analyst or a journalist is a career in the pursuit of truth. And it was that pursuit and the research and the modeling that I actually enjoyed. So this self-awareness allowed me to appreciate that journey, enjoy every day, and let the outcomes unfold as they will. So now I turn my disappointments into lessons and grow stronger from it. So I look forward to merging my story with the accomplished women of this cohort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. And thanks to the whole cohort for sharing a bit about themselves with us today. We'll have everyone's company information posted on the FourthWave website next week, if not sooner. So thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and have a great night. Thanks so much.